I've been thinking about whether to make a video about drinking for quite a while now, because it's a big subject. But I don't want to sit here and pretend I'm some kind of expert on stopping drinking, getting sober, because I'm not. But I do know what it's like to drink far too much for too long. And I know what it's like to constantly convince yourself it's not an issue. And that's where I'm going to start. Because I think one of the strange things about drinking is you get extremely good at making it look normal. You can be drinking way too much, still go to work, still turn up, do your job, have normal conversations with people, laugh, function. And I mean, function normally. And that's part of the problem. Because if your life hasn't completely fallen apart, it's too easy to tell yourself, well, I haven't got that bad of an issue, have I? Look at me, I'm going to work, paying the bills, things are okay. It's not like I'm lying in a gutter. So what's the problem? But the problem with that is you're measuring the damage by whether or not your life has completely gone to shit, whether it's collapsed. And that's just stupid. You haven't got to lose everything before something becomes a problem, before it's an issue. I think I spent a lot of time negotiating with myself. I'd find a reason having a drink was justified, if you like. A reason why it was understandable. I'd find reasons why today wasn't the day to worry about it. Just keep telling myself I'll cut down, I'm in control, it's not a problem. And if I had had a bad spell where I'd hit it hard, I would absolutely convince myself it was only a temporary thing. There was always some kind of explanation, always a reason. And eventually you get so bloody good at explaining the whys and wherefores, you don't actually need to face up to it. Then there's the hiding. That's something else I don't think people talk about. Not necessarily hiding from everyone else, but sometimes you're actually hiding it from yourself. You don't want people to know how much you're drinking. You don't want to answer questions. You don't want somebody looking at you and thinking, he's definitely got a problem. So you get clever about it. You manage it. I mean, properly manage it. Making sure you've always got enough. Working out when you can drink. Making the excuses. Telling yourself that because you haven't had a drink by this time or that time, everything's all right. But all the time, alcohol is quietly becoming part of your everyday routine, part of your life. And I think that's what surprised me the most when I stopped, was it wasn't just giving up the drink. It was having to work out who the hell I was without it. Because when something's been part of your life for years, decades in my case, you don't just remove it. You don't just get rid of it. You've got to remove the routines that you have formed around it. The way you use it, I suppose, the occasions, the excuses, the rewards, the way you deal with stress, how you switch off. That way that you tell yourself, I've had a really shit day, I deserve a drink tonight, I've earned it. Suddenly you lose a lot of behaviours, if you like, that your life is built around, and then you've got to work out what replaces them. And that's one of the reasons why stopping is harder than people expect it to be. Yeah, some expect it to be hard, but I think it's harder than you expect it to be. Because you might think, I'll stop drinking, everything will get better. And physically, yes, that's probably true. There can be huge improvements in your health. But emotionally, that's a different story. Because now you're actually awake for things, I suppose. You're awake for things you've been avoiding. You're dealing with shit that life throws at you without that thing you've been using to soften it, take the edge off. And that isn't only uncomfortable, it's fucking hard. It can be so hard you start questioning whether you can cope without it. There's things you've probably been putting off. Hard conversations, relationship issues, things you're not happy about, things you've done you're not proud of, things you've let happen. And when you're drinking heavily, you can put some distance between yourself and all that. But when you stop, that distance starts disappearing. Sometimes that's not a comfortable place to be. There's something else as well. You always expect people around you to be pleased. Don't get me wrong, some will be. In my case, a lot of people have been. Sometimes people don't actually know what to make of the new version of you. They've always known you as that bloke who drinks. Suddenly you don't. That changes the dynamic. You might be the one that always used to organise the occasions, the drinking sessions. That one that always stayed out, the one who was always up for let's have another one. Suddenly, you're saying, nah, I'm all right, mate. And that can feel strange. Sometimes it feels strange to you. I don't think enough people talk about what happens to your identity. What happens to you when you stop drinking? Because you're not just stopping drinking. You're actually asking yourself, who am I now? What do I do on a Friday night? What do I do when I've had a shit day? How do I celebrate? What happens when I get stressed? What do I do when I'm bored or I just want to switch my brain off? They all sound like simple questions, but they're not. Because if alcohol, the booze, has been the answer to those questions for years, decades, suddenly you've got to find new answers. Then there's the things you notice once that fog lifts. For me, one of the things was realising just how much energy I'd spent in managing the drinking. Thinking about it, planning around it, making sure I had it, making excuses for it. And recovering from it, dealing with how shit you felt the next day or whenever, or for 2 or 3 days if it had been a hard session. Doing all those things that revolved around it, around your drinking. And you don't necessarily recognise how much space something like that takes up. Not only in your mind, but in your life. Until you take it out. When you do that and that space opens up, you start seeing what else you could put in there. And that's where stopping drinking can be so much more than about the alcohol. Because once you've taken one thing out that was causing problems, you start noticing other things. And this is something I've learned through changing other parts of my life as well. Changing one thing doesn't automatically fix everything else. I lost a huge amount of weight, I stopped drinking, I sorted my health out, changed my whole routine. And a lot of things got massively better. But life didn't all of a sudden get perfect. Because it doesn't work like that. You don't remove one problem and all of a sudden get a clean slate. Sometimes you remove a problem and finally you're able to see the others more clearly. Does that make sense? I actually think that's a positive thing, right? Because at least you're dealing with reality. You're not hiding behind, if I just sort this thing out, everything else is going to be brilliant. Sometimes the truth is I've sorted this out. Now what else do I need to deal with? And that's a more honest way of looking at it. I don't want anybody watching this to think I'm just saying stop drinking and then everything will sort itself out. It'll all be spot on. Because it ain't that simple. For some people, stopping suddenly, for instance, going cold turkey can be medically really dangerous. Things like withdrawal, seizures, especially after really heavy drinking for a long time. If you're physically dependent on alcohol, got to get proper medical advice. That matters. I'm only literally talking about my own experience here. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I'm not telling anyone how to stop drinking and get sober. I'm just telling you what I learned about myself, really. Probably the biggest thing I learned was I got very good at convincing myself I didn't have a problem. And I bet that's one of the hardest things about drinking too much is you can know there's an issue. Somewhere inside you can know. Knowing it isn't the same as admitting it. Because once you admit it, you've got to decide what you're going to do about it. And that's a scary place to be. So if you're watching this and you're drinking more than you want to, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I will ask you one question. Are you actually happy with the relationship you have with alcohol? Not whether you're an alcoholic, not whether someone else thinks you'll drink too much, whether you've lost your job or a relationship or your health is, got issues because of it. Just, are you happy with it? Because maybe that's a better question. For me, stopping drinking was one of the biggest, absolutely the hardest changes I've made. But it wasn't the finish line. It wasn't the end of it. It was actually another starting point. And that's something I'm starting to understand about any kind of change, really. In general, you change anything. You don't just change your life once. You keep making changes. You keep discovering things. Keep finding bits of you that need work. Sometimes you look back and think, how the fuck did I convince myself that was normal? I can definitely say that about some of the things I did. That's for sure. I'm not embarrassed to talk about it now because I'm hiding it didn't help me. Pretending it wasn't happening didn't help me. Telling myself I was still functioning didn't make the thing drinking was destroying in my life any less. Eventually, I had to be honest with myself. And that was probably more important than anything. More important than anything else. So that's my experience with it, not a guide to getting sober, not a lecture, just an honest conversation about what happens when you take something out of your life that you've relied on, definitely relied on it for years, decades. Sometimes the biggest change isn't actually stopping the thing, it's finding out who you are when you don't need it anymore. And I'm still trying to figure that bit out. If this conversation's meant anything to you and you want to see more, get involved. Maybe subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment below. Share your experiences. Or if you don't want to comment publicly, there is an email address in the description. Or just watch one of the previous conversations. Or maybe the next one. I'll definitely be there, so until then, don't forget to look after yourself. And remember, we're not done yet.